DOW. Dits on Wrestling.
Hello and welcome to the Dits on Wrestling podcast with me, your host, Dits. And wow, I am riding a wave of momentum and hype today, just purely because of how well received last week's episode was. Unbelievable. I mean, I try not to look at stats that much because sometimes I can find it's disheartening, or sometimes I can actually find it's not actually all that accurate. However, day 3, I think it was day 3. It was either day 2 creeping into day 3 or full on day 3. Last week's episode was the most played episode of the podcast since its inception in 3 days, which is unbelievable. So before that, it was the very first episode, the debut, that had the most plays, and of course it did because we've had so many months since that dropped. 3 days it took for last week's show to beat it. Crazy. And I actually put that down a lot, not only to, I did feel like I was on, I actually thought I was in some form last week. I'm going to throw that out there. I think I loosened myself a little bit last week, but it wasn't just that. Dude McIntyre was a great guest as well, so it was really good to have him on. And of course, he's boosted the numbers, and apparently even his mum listened to it. So how about that? Basically, guys, if not only do you guys listen to this show, make sure that your mothers also listen to the show because it boosts my numbers. Go for it. But no, absolutely proud of last week's episode. I feel like I'm settled in to this into this podcasting role now, and I'm really enjoying it, especially since the format change. So it only makes sense to continue that trend on today's episode, because I'm going a little bit different today, and actually my next 2 guests are a little bit different from what I would usually go for. Today I've got the man behind Boris and Bart, the man behind the Super Short Report. Nick Bartley is coming on. He's going to be talking all about that, as well as his insane wrestling collectibles that he's got going on. I'm really looking forward to just delving into that, because I know he has some interesting backstories into how he's obtained a lot of this stuff. And it's, like I said, it's not something that I would usually pursue or have an interest in, but I don't know if any of you guys have watched the Super Short Report that he does on his Twitter profile and over on YouTube, but his backdrop is like just insane wrestling merch, collectibles throughout the years. I'm talking last 40 years, really old stuff, and it's pretty cool. So I looked at that and I thought, I'm getting him on. Although I have technically I've already had him on, but that was Boris and Bart invading the show, which I'm still not completely happy with. But but we've got the guy behind those two, the brains behind Boris and Bart, coming on to talk about that and his collectibles. Really looking forward to that. That is coming later on in the show. Next week, I won't reveal it just yet in case it falls through, but I have something quite fun planned for next week, guest-wise. So be on the lookout for that. Stay tuned. Last week, I also promised that I would clear, the minds of those wondering what was going on with the power rankings. Well, I have some news, and honestly, it's a little bit, it's temporary, because I really cannot figure out the logistics in my head. Bear with me. So it won't start this week. The power rankings will come back on Thursday next week, but we'll adopt a different formula. In the past, it's been the window opens to get your listing on the Thursday, and then it closes on the Sunday. That's still the same, so nothing changes there. However, I won't reveal the final rankings on the Monday, so the day after the window closes like I usually did. That will now be revealed on the weekly show every week on the Thursday. So as the results come out on the show, the next window opens as well. So it kind of works out quite well. This is where the logistics problem comes in, because when SmackDown moves to Friday, I don't know how I'm going to play it. So if anybody has any ideas on how I can make that work, then please comment on the episodes, the promotion tweet that I put out for the episode, or DM me, because I literally have no idea how I'm going to approach it. But I'm willing to listen to any suggestions, because my mind is blank. Absolutely blank. So help a brother out. But Power Rankings returns next Thursday, so stay tuned for the tweet that announces that the Power Rankings window is open, and I hope this time it will be bigger than ever. Now, before we get into the Raw and SmackDown highlights and then our conversation with Nick later on in the show, it wouldn't feel right to do this episode today without mentioning NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff, which is happening on Saturday. There is a slight chance that you're listening to this after that event has happened. So if that is the case, well, that was a great show. But in this case, this is just a preview. And the reason I am previewing it is because I'm actually going to the show, which I'm really excited about. This is my first pay-per-view as such that I'm ever attending. So I'm really, really excited to go. And it's not that far away either. It's just a 2.5 hour journey. I actually don't know what tickets that I got. There wasn't that much left. It was very much a last minute decision. I'd actually have to look. Well, I'll actually probably get there and I'm going to have to just take the seats as they are. I mean, I am anyway, because I bought the fucking tickets. But I'm just going to walk in and go, right, where am I sitting? I know it's not close to the ring. I know that. However, knowing that that venue, I watched NXT live there maybe 5 years ago, whenever it is, when they did their first leg of touring in the UK. I watched it at the Motorpoint Arena. And honestly, I think the views, no matter where you sit in that venue, I think they're pretty good. So I can't complain. This isn't WrestleMania levels where you're up in the when you're up really high, so everyone's just like an ant. It's not going to be any of that. So I'm still going to get a good view. I'm still going to be able to enjoy the show, and that's the most important thing. But no, I'm really, really looking forward to it. The atmosphere is going to be off the chart, I'm sure. Maybe I'll sneak onto the network as well. I have appeared on the NXT UK TV shows over on the network in the last few weeks, so there you go. I was at the Plymouth tapings. Come on. Really good stuff. I've really got into NXT UK recently, which is handy because otherwise I'd be wasting my money, really. But the card is looking pretty strong, to be honest. I'm just looking at it in front of me right now. Travis Banks versus Noam Dar was announced last week, I believe. That'll be a fun little match. I am a big fan of both. More a Noam Dar guy, but I think Travis Banks, I've dipped in and out of NXT UK since it started. I've been to 2 sets of tape-ins, didn't watch anything up until the first tape-ins, and then watched the Plymouth stuff, and then stepped away again, and then came back a couple of months ago. But I know that Travis missed out on the first takeover that they did through, I'm going to say injury. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he missed out through injury. This time he gets a chance to get on the show, and he's going to be facing Noam Dar, which is going to be a really fun match, and I'm looking forward to it. Then we got Dave Mastiff versus Joe Coffey of Gallus in a last man standing match. Yeah, give me that. I'm all for seeing a last man standing match live. I quite like Dave Mastiff, and I quite like Joe Coffey as well. I prefer Joe Coffey when he's with Gallus rather than as an individual. When we did TakeOver Blackpool, I don't think he was quite at the level of number one contender for the United Kingdom Championship, but hey, he's young, plenty of time to get there, and with the Gallus boys, it's easily done. But I'm looking forward to that match. Then we have the triple threat tag team match for the NXT UK Tag Team Championships. Grizzled Young Vets versus Cardiff's own Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster, and then Gallus, the other two members of Gallus, Mark Coffey and Wolfgang. That is going to be awesome. And I'm going to be honest, I think Zach Gibson of the Grizzled Young Vets is a guy who you love to hate. If you've watched NXT UK, you'll know what I mean. The fact that he is Scouse, for a start, helps. I'm sorry if any of the listeners are Scouse, but even you guys can understand, where we're all coming from. But I do really like Zach Gibson. Drake, yeah, he's kind of playing a secondary role to Gibson, I think, but I hope it's Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster that come out with a win here. If any of these teams win, to be fair, I'll be happy. But if Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster come out on top, the Cardiff boys picking up the win, the place is going to go nuts. And it'll be really cool to be there when that happens. So fingers crossed. Then we have an NXT UK Women's Championship match, Toni Storm versus Kaylee Ray. I've actually seen, believe it or not, if you listen to this, you know that I'm very WWE based, and I sometimes dip my toes in other ponds and other pools, but mostly WWE based. But I have seen these guys wrestle before on other shows, and I don't remember seeing a bad match between them. I can't remember what promotion it was. For some reason, Progress is in my mind. But I don't remember seeing a bad match between them. And, just on that basis, I'm really looking forward to it. The build has been... it's not been the best build that we could have possibly had to go into this match. However, it was a very NXT build because Toni Storm wasn't on TV, for consecutive weeks. Neither was Kaylee Ray. They relied purely on video packages, which isn't a bad thing. It's built well. It's just not built as strong as it could. But don't let that take away from the fact that this is going to be a really good match. I think Toni Storm's going to take it. To be honest, I still think she has legs as the women's champion down there. And then we have the main event. Well, I assume there's going to be the main event because, Toni Storm, Kaylee Ray could easily be the main event. It's not out of the norm these days for the women to main event shows, which is great. But I'm just going to assume it is, just based on the card that's in front of me. And that's Volta versus Tyler Bate for the United Kingdom Championship. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm a huge fan of Volta. I cannot wait to hear those chops go off live. I've never seen him wrestle live before, so that's a tick in the box. I've seen Tyler Bate a few times now wrestle. Huge fan of Tyler Bate. Still very, very young. I think he's like 23, 24. So he's got a very, very long career ahead of him. And whether he's going to remain in NXT UK for the duration of his run in WWE, I don't know. But he has a pretty high ceiling as far as I'm concerned. And he was up on 205 Live last year, I think it was. Maybe it was earlier on this year. So people know who he is, and he is fantastic. But do I see him winning on Saturday? No, I don't. But hell, he's still going to put in a strong effort, which is going to result in a very, very good match, I'm sure. There are going to be shenanigans, I'd imagine. Imperium are going to get themselves involved. But then Trent will come down and even the odds, kind of. And maybe, just maybe, we might see Pete Dunne as well. Although he seems to be more on the on NXT proper these days. But that's the card for the show, and I'm pretty excited for it. Like I said, the first pay-per-view that I've ever been able to go to, I missed NXT TakeOver London, which is when I actually watched the NXT live event in Cardiff 4 or 5 years ago. Missed that just purely because I went to that because it was closer. I regret that because NXT TakeOver London was a great show, and I could have been there had I been willing to put in the effort to travel that extra little bit of mileage. But I still watched it on the network, still enjoyed it, so, whatever. There is a potential surprise, though, on the show on Saturday, because after Raw went off the air, there was a WWE exclusive, a WWE.com exclusive, with Cesaro saying that he's going to be traveling to Wales, traveling to Cardiff, to have a hands-on, air quotes, hands-on appearance. So, I mean, to me, and to, most people with a little bit of logic, you would say that he's going to have a match. Or is at least going to get involved in a match. I'd rather it be the former. And people are saying Cesaro Volta, but he's got his match going on, so it's not going to be that. But that would be a great match. I'm hoping to see Cesaro versus Devlin. That's what I'm lobbying for. That's what I'm pining for. So maybe we get that as a surprise inclusion. And, there might be some more matches added to the card. Ripley and Piper Niven have their thing going on, so maybe that gets added. And then we get 2 women's matches on the show, which is cool. Who knows? Who knows what is going to happen between, now and Saturday. But, I mean, when I'm recording this on Tuesday, so the Go Home NXT UK show has not hit yet. So maybe some more stuff is going to get added before Saturday, but we'll wait and see. Maybe something will, but if it does, I'll be pumped for it regardless. But that's NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff. Really looking forward to it. Next week I'll tell you all about it. But you can watch that on the network on Saturday night in the UK. I don't know what time it runs everywhere else. In America, I'm assuming it's the afternoon for you guys. And then those east of the UK, it'll just be later and later and later. Who knows? I don't know time zones unless I actually look at a map. But when do people look at maps these days? that's NXT UK TakeOver. Bring that shit on. But let's get into the Raw highlights this week, because things have changed, people. Things have changed. Here we go.
Welcome to Monday Night Raw!
Now, remember last week when I said that I would no longer pipe on about how consistent Raw has been and how, consistently good that it has been? Remember I said that? Well, and I said I would never bring it up again unless something changed. And something did change this week. Raw took a little bit of a dip. And it was still enjoyable in some places, but overall, after I came away from it, I actually thought to myself, if I didn't watch this Raw, I don't think I would have missed anything, and I don't think I would have gone, I wish I watched Raw. I didn't get that feeling this week. I don't think there was anything that happened that was must see. And there was stuff that really was really not liked. And we'll get into that. I mean, I know this is highlights. This is the highlights segment. There are no dips. There are no, this was terrible. These are highlights, but I cannot go through this whole Raw segment stuff without talking about what is the biggest low of the episode. But we will get into that. Let's start positive. Always start positive. There wasn't that much stuff with regards to promos and stuff going on backstage. Usually I have quite a few highlights that detail, somebody did a promo in the ring. It was fantastic. They managed to reel off their points perfectly. Their characters are great, blah, blah, blah. Or something will happen backstage, somebody will get assaulted, or some nice little progression with, a certain skit or whatever. Not much of that happened. Most of my highlights this week are matches. So this segment isn't going to be as long as it usually is, because there's nothing really to build on, because a match is a match. And that first match that is a highlight is the first round King of the Ring match between Drew McIntyre and Ricochet. And Drew McIntyre, this was so hard to kind of predict who was going to go over on this one, because Ricochet is, since coming up from NXT and moving away from his tag team with Aleister Black, I think he's been pushed pretty strongly. Obviously, he's won the United States title along the way. Drew McIntyre, on the other hand, has been on and off, which he really shouldn't be. Drew McIntyre is brilliant, and I don't think I'm the only person who thinks that. So when I saw that these two were facing off, I thought it was going to be a difficult one for anybody to predict, but for me, it was always going to be Drew. I had Drew pegged to win the King of the Ring outright. Never mind this match. I had him pegged to win the whole thing. He didn't get past the first round because Ricochet beat him clean. So, what's that about? Am I happy that Ricochet won and has advanced to the next round, to the quarterfinals of the King of the Ring tournament? Yes, I am. I love Ricochet. Big fan of Ricochet. I just think he should have done it at somebody else's expense, not Drew. If Drew comes out of this with a meaningful feud with somebody else, if this loss angers him to the point where he enters another feud and comes out looking absolutely spanking, it was a great decision. But where does Drew go from here if that's not the case? It's a toughie. It is a toughie, but that's the booking that's been made, and we'll just have to see where things go with it. I mean, I think Drew should have been Universal Champion already to this point, but hey, I don't make the decisions backstage, so we can only hope that he'll get there one day. But the match itself was great. Drew proved last week or the week before, I can't remember when it was, when he faced off against Cedric Alexander, just how good he is with people who are your flippy guys, your cruiserweight guys, your smaller guys. The match with Cedric was great. The match with Ricochet, great, and that's why it's a highlight. There was a lot of hard hitting stuff throughout the match. I liked the setup for the finish. That was pretty good. I didn't think that Ricochet was going to hit that, but he hit it, and then he got the 1-2-3. So there was no Drew getting his heat back at the end of the match either. It was a fun match, and it was a good match, and that seems to be the norm at the moment. We're getting really, really good TV matches at the moment since Paul Heyman stuck his fingers in the pie. And if I remember rightly, that was the same with SmackDown back in the day when he took over. The match quality on the TV show got a lot better. You had Raw, which was just crass and not real focus on the matches, and then you had SmackDown, which was like the wrestling fans show, because Paul Heyman made sure that match quality was a priority. And I think we're getting that on Raw now as well, which is good to see. And that is a trend for today's highlights as well, funnily enough. But Ricochet won, advances to face Samoa Joe in the next round. So that'll be a fun match. We've already seen that before in the last couple of months, but I'm more than happy to see it again. Then we had this second match, which is the highlight. Corbin versus Miz. Was it as good as Drew versus Ricochet? No, it wasn't. But did it achieve what it was supposed to achieve? Yes, it did. I might have picked this. I might have picked this match as a highlight just purely because I struggled with highlights for Raw this week. But it was not a bad match. And as much hate as Baron Corbin gets, I actually quite like him because he's an effective heel. If you're hating him, he's doing his job. And I've touched on it on this podcast before. My feelings on Corbin and, you know, the way he is. I don't mind him. I really don't mind him. And we haven't seen him for a few weeks either, so it's fresh hatred now, because now we've got you had the Universal title picture that he was inserted into, and everyone's like, oh my god, like, what if he actually wins this fucking title? What if he actually wins this thing? He just retired Kurt at WrestleMania. If that wasn't bad enough, you're going to stick that red belt on him as well. God, no. Just absolutely not. And then he went away. And then that hatred was forgotten. And then he's come back. And now we've got King Corbin looming over us. So people are worried. People are worried. And the fact that he beat The Miz, he's one step closer to becoming King Corbin. And he even put on the crown and waved around the scepter. As maybe it's a bit of foreshadowing. Maybe. But I don't know what's going to happen. I thought Drew was going to win this whole thing, so my picks are completely out the window. So anybody's going to win this thing now. I literally have no idea who is going to take it. I couldn't even hazard a guess. But I thought it was a good match. There was a few decent spots. Very, very surprised that Corbin kicked out the Skull Crushing finale. That surprised me. But it's not really that protected. Baron Corbin's moveset, by the way, I love it. The Deep Six is great, and the End of Days is great. I don't think I've ever seen anybody kick out of an End of Days either. So there you go. That's a protected finisher right there. Don't really see that much these days. Then, was that the last match? No, we have another match later on the show, which is good. But this is good because we actually have something that... No, I'm telling a lie. I'm telling a lie, right? It's the way I've written it down in my notes. My next highlight is part of a match. So technically, it's still a highlight of a match. But the highlight itself is in the Sasha Banks-Natalya match, which was all right. It was okay. It served its purpose in getting Sasha over as the heel now that she is, which was... It was effective, and it got even more heat on her, which is great. She not only won the match with the highlight for me, by the way, she had the bank statement on, couldn't quite get Natalya to tap. She was getting closer and closer to the ropes, so she wrapped her bad arm around her throat and started pulling on that instead. Great stuff. I loved that spot. That was a highlight. The match itself, it was what it was. But that bank statement was a highlight. And then, of course, after the match, she attacked Natalya a little bit more for a little bit more heat. I'm a fan of that. That's a highlight. That is a highlight. Screw it. The whole match was a highlight, but the bank statement was the highlight. And then, I know she had her promo at the start of the show. I didn't really feel it, to be honest, which is why that wasn't a highlight. In case you were wondering how I've got to the Sasha Banks stuff without mentioning the promo. That's why. I didn't think much of the promo. I thought it was a little bit robotic. People are saying it was a pipe bomb. That was not a pipe bomb in any way, shape, or form. It was just a promo. And not a good one. Next up, we had... well, here we go. This is the match I was on about that was coming on later. Cedric versus Cesaro. Cesaro, again, proving how amazing he is as a professional wrestler. And it makes me think even more so how underrated he is. I always harp on that Christian is underrated. I always harp on that Sheamus is incredibly underrated. I actually think Cesaro is... no, it's not underrated. That is completely the wrong word. He is underutilized, we could say, rather than underrated, because people know how good he is. He just hasn't had... He hasn't had that push, which... we all feel that he deserves. People say that his charisma's holding him back. Maybe that is the case, but it's a shame because I actually think he has a pretty high ceiling. And, there's still time for him to get to that spot where he's fighting for singles titles again. Like, I haven't seen him hold a title since a US title, maybe many moons ago. Since then, it's just been tag title runs. Fingers crossed he gets back to that point again. But the match itself, Cedric and Cesaro, was really good. There was a really good story told, and it was quite similar to the SummerSlam match between AJ and Ricochet, when AJ focused on Ricochet's leg, and thus removing the threat as such. Because Ricochet was all about high flying, AJ cut that off. Cedric is all about the high flying. Cesaro cut that off. And we even got to see an ankle lock from him as well. I always love an ankle lock. I don't know what it is. It's such an easy move to get out of an ankle lock unless you lock it in like Kurt used to do. But I just love seeing it. I don't know what it is. Maybe it is because, it was Kurt's thing. And I'm a big Kurt Angle fan. Could be that. But I'm always a big fan of an ankle lock. Effective move. It's an effective move. I've had an ankle lock applied to me before and it fucking hurts, okay? So I know it's good. But it was a fun match and a good story was told throughout it. And Cesaro, his style meshes with high flyers, as we've seen, over the past, couple of months. So, since he went solo, at least. And he lost, which was fair because Cedric is in the next round of the King of Ring tournament. You need him to look strong. It worries me because maybe they've done this whole injury angle because maybe setting up a Corbin win. I don't know. Maybe. Could be. Or it could be used as he's injured and yet he was able to overcome Cesaro and overcome Corbin. It could go either way. But it was a good match. A really good match. And I'd say that was my favorite from Raw, match-wise. Closely followed by the Drew Ricochet match. But that was, highlights-wise, guys, that was really it. It wasn't a highlight-worthy show. It just kind of happened. It kind of existed. And I think that the tag team turmoil match was essentially a gauntlet match. I don't know why they call it a turmoil match, but there you go. I think that sucked the whole momentum, the whole air out of Raw for me and a lot of other people at the sounds of things, because it made a mockery. Like, for me, the way I look at it, it made a mockery of the tag division. That you have so many established teams, regardless of what ability they have, they're established teams, and then you have just a team that's just come together for no reason at all. Ziggler and Robert Roode, they come together. They're this tag team, and they best like 3 or 4 teams in a row, whatever it was. It just seems a little bit too much. You had the War Raiders in there, who are more than capable of smashing every other team. You have the OC, recent tag team champions. Let's not forget that the tag team division got shat on last week when they lost those titles in the first place to feed into another separate feud over the Universal title. And it's I'm a big fan of tag team wrestling, and it pains me, to see this kind of stuff happen. And I nowadays I do look for, a positive spin on stuff, and I can find something positive coming out of this, and that is, let's not forget teams in the past who have 2 solo guys who have come together, for no reason whatsoever other than they've got nothing better to do. They throw them together. Sometimes it works, and I'm going to point to a very, very recent occurrence of this, and that is The Bar. Cesaro and Sheamus, both guys floundering as singles guys. They threw them together in a feud, then they became a tag team, and they became one of my favorite tag teams very, very quickly. So it does work. However, if they were to come together as a team, whether it be last night or, a little bit further into the future, then by all means, put them together. Let them do it. Just don't put them in a tag team turmoil match / gauntlet match where they run over established teams. It just didn't sit right with me. And it really sucked the momentum out for me. That's my thoughts on it. I will see how things go. Should they win the tag titles at Clash of Champions? Yeah, they should. To be honest, they really should. Am I going to be happy about it? Yeah, it is what it is. We'll see what happens. But that is it. But that was my thoughts on Raw. Highlights and a low light. You actually got a low light this week. And I guess it's time to read out your guys' tweets on Raw about what you thought about the show. Darren Harding said, so yet again, the WWE screwers of having Braun Strowman with a singles title on Raw. Even if he just held the US title for a couple of weeks until WWE Clash of Champions was over with, just the potential of having a triple champion for the first time ever would have been awesome. I mean, I wouldn't really have been a fan of Braun holding the tag titles and the US title and potentially the Universal title. I'm not really a fan of that. But maybe going into Clash of Champions with Seth and Braun defending the tag titles, Braun going off to defend the US title, and then meeting together in the main event for the Universal title match. That would have been an interesting dynamic, but I don't really know. It would have been different. Cammy D said, I didn't watch Raw last night, but I heard Drew McIntyre lost. Will someone do right by this man? He's ready. He was ready a year ago, and he's still floundering. So somebody has to do right by him. He's such a good talent. It pains me. It really does pain me. David Wasserman said, the double DQ in the tag team turmoil is so dumb. Horrible way to write yourself out of a multi-man match that was advertised. So bad that I'm tweeting way after it happened. If you need help with your tag division, WWE, let me know. There you go. WWE, get in touch with David. He's going to fix the tag team division. But I do agree, the double DQ really did, as much as the turmoil sucked the life out of Raw, and that double DQ pretty much ended that turmoil as far as any interest in that there could have been. It was a silly. If you're trying to protect those two teams, that was not a good way to do it. The Fiery Monarch said, Monday Night Raw, what a horrible mess. I wouldn't say it was a horrible mess, but it was, like I said, it's definitely a dip in quality. Some of the stuff was a horrible mess. I will give you that. But overall, it was okay. Second City Rain said, the New Orleans crowd was pretty weak last night, and yes, it was. It was absolutely dead. I actually thought the volume on my TV was wrong, or off, or just not working. So I had to turn it up, and the crowd was still dead. So that's how I discovered the fact that New Orleans were not really into Raw this week, which is weird because, they've hosted 2 WrestleManias in the last 5 years. That place is usually bouncing, but I guess at WrestleMania you have all those UK fans heading over there and being all crazy, and then, all kinds of people from around the world and the rest of America getting on board the WrestleMania train as well. So maybe New Orleans just never was a good wrestling crowd, but I did think they were, but last night was dead, and it was a shame. WWE UK Fanatic said Mrs. Babyface ring
Freaking hell, I can't even speak. Miz's babyface run has quickly fallen flat, in my opinion. I think it's time to turn him back as a heel and let him do what he does best. Now, originally, when he turned babyface, I was actually pretty happy with it, and I actually thought he did well, with his stuff with Shane and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you are right. It has kind of... It's run its course. Miz is a natural heel, and he's a very, very good heel. So hopefully, in the very near future, we see heel Miz again, because I miss him. I miss him a lot. And finally, Wrestle Features said, I thought last night's Raw was utterly lifeless. Yeah. I mean, like I've said, I actually struggled to get highlights this week. And most of them come from an in-ring perspective rather than everything that goes on around it, promos, backstage stuff, whatever. So, yeah, I actually agree with you there. It did feel a little bit flat, a little bit lifeless. Hopefully that won't be the case next week. Hopefully we bounce back. But from an in-ring point of view, Raw was great. Everything else, not so much. Now, as is always the case, we do throw together a voice clip, which we will get into right now. Goldie is providing it this week, so let's hear his thoughts on Raw.
So basically, here's my take. Monday Night Raw, below average show compared to the past couple of weeks. A fan of Sasha and Natalya going at it. Sasha coming out with the win, much needed. Wait for her to keep her edge. Other than that, Monday Night Raw, they could keep it. I feel like SmackDown was a little bit better.
And that was Goldie with his take on Raw there. Short and sweet. Doesn't always have to be a 4-minute extravaganza. Says exactly what it says. Does exactly what it says on the tin. There we go. I'll get my words out eventually. But there you go. That completes our Raw segment, which means, naturally, of course, we go over to SmackDown Live. So, Shane, lead us in, my friend.
Welcome, everyone, to SmackDown Live!
So that is another SmackDown in the bag, and I actually quite enjoyed it this week. I think it was actually better than Raw, which that's the first time that's happened in the last maybe 5 or 6 episodes of the weekly stuff that WWE put out. I think this is the first time for me that SmackDown has excelled ahead of Monday Night Raw. So I have plenty of highlights to cover SmackDown and as to why it was a better show than Raw. And it starts at the very beginning, and this is something that Raw didn't really have in its show this week, and that was just stuff like promos in the ring, backstage segments, all that kind of stuff. SmackDown had those, whereas Raw didn't, and I think with the weeklies, you need that kind of stuff. And SmackDown started with not only a promo in the ring with Kofi, great promo it was, then you also had some backstage stuff going on as well with Randy Orton, and then a brawl. Now, I know a lot of people are saying it's a rehashed storyline. Well, this little bit anyway. AJ and Samoa Joe did this exact thing last year with Joe reading out a fan mail from his family to AJ, and now Orton's doing it with Kai, Kofi's son. Yeah, I mean, I'll just let that one slide because I am really enjoying this feud, and I really enjoyed that whole segment from SmackDown right up until Orton dropped Kofi's head on the concrete backstage. It's I think I said it last week. The builds that these two are putting together, going into SummerSlam, now going into Clash of Champions, has been great. And the SummerSlam match disappointed, but it was obviously building to, well, more build, which is what we have now. So I'm hoping that maybe a Clash of Champions, that'll be it. That'll be the end of the feud. I don't really care who wins. I really don't. But I hope that match is good. That's all I hope for. I hope it's really, really good to make up for the fact that SummerSlam didn't deliver. And that this feud deserves a good match to finish it off. Then we go into Ali versus Murphy, and the in-ring action this week has been really, really good. Ali Murphy, they obviously know each other from when they were in 205 Live together. They had some great matches down there. So this match was never going to disappoint. And it didn't. It was very, very good. Keeping in trend, Elias and Kevin Owens aside, every match so far in the King of the Ring tournament has been good. Some of them have been great, but the worst that it's been is good. And it kind of reminds me of how good the matches used to be with Cena's US Open challenges. It kind of has that feel, these matches. They seem to be on another level that you expect from a TV match. Like, there is importance to it. They're treating the King of the Ring tournament, as something special, as something meaningful, and it's great to see. So every match, obviously, apart from the Elias KO one, has delivered massively. And, Ali won, but Murphy looked incredible in defeat for the third week in a row. He's gone from not coming on TV to now smashing out great matches after great matches after great matches. So hopefully that continues. Whether he continues as a heel, obviously he showed us some respect to Ali at the end of their match, but whether that continues in a babyface role or whether he'll stay as a heel, I hope he stays as a heel, to be honest, but whatever it ends up being, Buddy is on the rise, and we should all be prepared to enjoy the living hell out of it. And there was an incredible DDT spot in that match as well, just before the finish. Brutal. It looked absolutely brutal. Then we had, another match was a highlight for me this week. Randy Orton versus Big E. And Big E is now... I've always looked at Big E as somebody who, if he was to... this is the same with all of them. Obviously, Kofi's the WWE champion now, so he's already in that spot. But if Big E was to branch out on his own, if Woods was to branch out on his own, I think they would do really, really well as single stars. But I think Big E is the one who would really, really push the boundaries. He has everything. Anything you ask of Big E, he will deliver. Do you want him to be funny? He'll make you laugh. Want him to be serious? You'll react accordingly. You'll know that shit is about to go down. You know that whatever's happening means something. You ask him to go out and deliver a good match, he'll go out and deliver a good match. We'll all enjoy it. Anything you ask of him, he's there, he'll do it, he'll deliver. And this week, against Orton, he delivered again. It was a really good match, I thought. And, it had obviously a screwy finish, but that feeds into the whole story. I'm digging the Revival and Orton working together. I'm glad that is still a thing. It's kind of like Legacy 2.0. I was a fan of Legacy, so therefore I'm a fan of this. I'm more of a fan of the Revival than I was of DiBiase and Cody Rhodes. So I think this is an improvement as long as they keep this going and something comes out of it. Maybe Orton wins at Clash of Champions. Maybe the Revival win at Clash of Champions. Put them together. This stuff just writes itself. Do that. But it was a really good segment, and I'm really digging that Super RKO that they're starting to do now as well. 2 thumbs up from me. Kevin Owens. Finally, he got the upper hand. Not against Shane, but he got the upper hand against Elias this week. He delivered a stunner in the middle of the ring to finally not look like a fool, and to kind of walk away with his head held high. I don't know what's going to happen next week. I don't know where this story's going. It kind of needs Shane around, and obviously Shane wasn't here this week, much to the enjoyment of many of the fans. But I'm enjoying it. I am enjoying it, but there has to be a payoff, and that payoff I thought was at SummerSlam, but obviously not, because here we are. He's still in a feud with Shane, and he's in a feud with Elias via Shane. But he walked away with the upper hand this week, and I dig that. And a lot of people are saying that he should have pinned Elias. Elias was there prime for the taking. 24/7 championship could have been his. And it devalues the belt that he kind of walked away from it. But he himself put something up on Twitter to kind of, I mean, it's a brilliant tweet saying that he could not be the 24/7 champion because he couldn't have that, any of that kind of stuff going on with people chasing him while he's, picking up his kids from school and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there you go. There's a real reason for him not doing it. Like, what more could you want? I love Kevin Owens. Brilliant guy. Brilliant on social media as well. And then we had Chad Gable versus Shelton Benjamin, the final King of the Ring first round match, and again, it delivered. It wasn't as good as the other offerings on the show or any of the stuff on Raw, but it was still a good match. This is what I mean. Like, good is the worst that the King of the Ring tournament has been so far, and these two know each other. They have good chemistry together. It was fun. It was a fun little match. And the fact that Chad Gable picked up the win is where my highlight comes from, because I'm hoping it boosts him a little bit. I don't think he's going to win next week against Andrade. I believe he's against Andrade. Or is he against Elias? Yes, he's against Andrade. I hope that he is able to win that match. I genuinely do. I mean, I am a big fan of Gable. But Andrade, again, I'm a fan of Andrade as well, to be fair. Andrade is the guy who you need to push a little bit more, I think. Gable just getting past the first round is good enough for him at the moment, so that's good. But that was really the highlights. The whole Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns thing, it initially had me intrigued. I was interested in it. But it's kind of got silly. Last week, that cliffhanger where Eric Rowan's doppelganger was revealed as the guy who threw scaffolding onto Roman Reigns. He was revealed as the guy who tried to ram a car into him. And this week, that was all forgotten about. Roman Reigns came to the ring. He said, "Oh, look, I've got some footage." Played it, and there was a guy that obviously looked like Eric Rowan, but he also looked a lot like the guy that Daniel Bryan pulled into that room with a sack on his head. And yet Eric Rowan was suddenly the guy who did it. Yet they revealed last week, supposedly, that this random mirror image of Eric Rowan was the guy who did it. What is going on? Seriously, I'm very confused. Very, very confused. But it is what it is. Roman Reigns against Daniel Bryan, whenever that ends up being, probably Clash of Champions, it's going to be a good match. I just wish this story was told a little bit better, because at this point we still don't know who's done it all. We can assume that it's Daniel Bryan, and we can assume that it's Eric Rowan. It's just weird getting to that conclusion. But there you go. It's been a disappointing story from something that could have been it could have been pretty good. But hey, you can't get a win all the time. You cannot get a win all the time. But what did you guys think of SmackDown this week? I got a couple of tweets, as I always do. Ryan Buckley said, "You could sense the rewrites on SmackDown Live last night. Everything felt rushed. Show sucked outside of Ali and Murphy." I didn't really get that feel. Excuse me, that there was rewrites. I heard there was again, but I didn't really get that sense that, things were rushing along, obviously, apart from Reigns and Bryan's little thing they've got going on. I don't really see it, but Ali and Murphy was, well, for me, the highlight of the show, so I agree with that. The Clean Finish said, Big E once again showing that he should be in the main event spot. He can more than hang with the top guys, and that was on full display during his match with Orton. Absolutely. I alluded to that. If Big E was to leave the New Day, he would be somebody that I think would achieve the most out of the New Day group. Obviously, I know Kofi's the champion, but away from that. So, yeah, I'm with you there, Clean Finish. I am with you there. Andy Wilmot said, Buddy Murphy having a brilliant match for the last 3 SmackDown Live shows in a row. Dude is so talented. Buddy Murphy is incredible. He was the best kept secret in WWE. That secret is now out, and people are starting to realize it. It's great. Vivid Chim, again, watching SmackDown Live, and I think Murphy is becoming my guy. He's bloody great. You cannot be a British explanation. It's bloody great. It really, and he is bloody great, and I can't wait to see this elevate. Another Buddy Murphy tweet. CWG just watched Ali versus Buddy Murphy. Such a good match. We need to see that at WrestleMania for the IC title. Hey, count me in. Count me in. That would be a great match. Open the show with that. Start the show with a buzz. The crowd would love that stuff. Maybe it'll happen. Jay Brutal said, my favorite finishing move in WWE is the three most destructive words. RKO. I love me an RKO. I'm a sucker for an RKO. It's definitely in my top three. So Jay, I'm more or less with you there. I'm more or less with you. I do love an RKO. I'm a sucker for an RKO. And finally, Rico Rivera. I think that's how you say your name. Apologies if it's not that. Why didn't Fight Owens fight / Kevin Owens pin Elias for the 24/7 title after the stunner? Maybe it proves it's just a joke title. And that's why I alluded to earlier on. Kevin Owens backed that up with his tweet saying why he didn't do it. And hey, Maverick went in there and won it anyway, so it was a happy ending. So there you go. Now, those were your tweets, but of course, what is par for the course these days is getting voice clips from you guys to get your opinions out there. SmackDown this week is provided by Ringside Rant. Really good dude. Yeah. Let's hear what he had to say about SmackDown.
Why, hello, this is RJ from the Ringside Rant. Honored to be on Dits on Wrestling podcast right here, right now, to talk a little bit about SmackDown Live. This week we saw some good things, we saw some bad things. However, the angle that we're seeing now with Randy Orton, Kofi Kingston, we're talking long-term booking, and this is an absolute fantastic angle that they're working on, a fantastic feud that they have working on between two veterans in this business, Randy Orton and Kofi Kingston. Hopefully, this is going to be that time that we may see Kofi lose that title to Randy Orton here at Night of Champions, Clash of Champions, whatever you want to call it. However, hopefully we'll see this get played out a little bit more, a little bit longer. Outside of that, there's not really anybody on that roster right now that, can step up to the plate and take this title away from Kofi Kingston. A lot like the Universal title on Raw. We want to see things change. They say we're going to see things change, but I guess consistency is king. The things that I really didn't care too much about was this whole angle that we're starting to see once again, with Bayley and Charlotte. I don't know. I'm not a fan of this angle. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but this is just starting to get monotonous, and I'm not looking forward to this Bayley and Charlotte match. Probably going to happen with Charlotte getting the title. Another thing that I will leave you on that I am liking are these backstage look-ins during the King of the Ring qualifying matches. Your Ali and Buddy match was absolutely phenomenal. Probably the best match on that card last night. We also saw Andrade backstage looking in and what have you when Chad Gable beat Shelton Benjamin. So I'm liking that. I'm liking the push you're giving Andrade. But I'm also looking forward to this potential with Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan. Just finally, let's do it. They're building up to this so much. The story has been garbage. I don't like it, but hopefully the match between Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan will live up to that anticipation that they're building. So I appreciate the time that you have allotted to me. We are drastically out of time. Follow us on Twitter @_Ringside Rant, and welcome to Ranters Nation.
If you're not a part of Ranters Nation, right now and you're not listening to the Ringside Rant, now is the time to do it. He is a good guy, and he supplies weekly interviews. Like, he goes out of his way to make sure that we all have interviews to listen to every single week from guys in the industry, wrestlers and the like. So that is incredibly impressive. I can't even plan 3 weeks ahead of the time, and never mind like for the next like 2 or 3 months. This guy can do that. So thank you very much, RJ, for supplying that clip today. Very, very good. But now it's time to maybe not revisit Boris and Bart completely, but it's now time to talk to Nick Bartley, the brains behind Boris and Bart. And let's also talk about his wrestling collection, his wrestling memorabilia collection that he has. I'm really looking forward to hearing some of the stories behind them. This should be a really fun chat. Here we go. It's time for that guest portion of the show. We are keeping the trend alive. I think this is the 4th week now that we've had a guest on, so it's going to be the norm, which is good. However, this is a kind of return this week. This is the first return guest, kind of, that we have. Today I'm joined by Nick Bartley, who is not only a massive collector of all things wrestling memorabilia, but he's also the brains behind those 2 clowns that I had on a couple of weeks ago, Boris and Bart. Hello, Nick. How are we doing?
I'm doing great. I'm thrilled to be here. I appreciate it very much. Yeah, I guess you could say that I'm the only, out of the 3 of us, I guarantee you I am the only one with a brain.
You know what? I'm with you there. After having spoken to these 2 guys for the duration of Raw and Smackdown, yeah, there's barely a brain cell between them, never mind an entire brain.
They're the worst, honest to God. They're the worst. The 2 epitome of the worst wrestling fans you could possibly imagine, truthfully.
And yet you have them in very close proximity to you. I'm assuming at most parts of a day.
It's 24 hours a day. I can't get away. I cannot get away from it. If I turn around, there's one of them staring me in the face all day.
That's a sad reality. That is a sad reality. So
it is. You're right.
With the 2 guys, like how did that all come together? How did you end up being linked with these 2 idiots?
Oh, that's a great question. I've always been intrigued by, for some reason, acts like theirs. I know that there's truthfully nothing in the world like Boris and Bart. That's why it is intriguing to me. But there was, whenever I was a kid, I used to do actually a Paul McCartney, John Lennon skit for my friends at school, and they loved it. Yeah, and I know. But that's honestly, truthfully, where the origin of Boris and Bart came from. A little Lennon and McCartney skit I used to do in grade school.
So, as a Brit, I'm curious to hear this skit, if you're still able to produce it.
That's a good question. Well, see, I'm not as good as Bart and Bort. That's why I have them do the show. But I needed a vessel to project my my vision. But whenever I was a kid, I used to go on. I really don't know if I can do it. Let me try here for you. So there was a lot of times where Paul would talk very nicely to John, and John would say things like, "I really don't want to hear from you, Paul. Enough is enough, really, honestly, enough is enough." And John, there was a lot of things going on back then, really, honestly, there was a lot of things happening then. And that's pretty much what Paul would say nonstop. There was a lot of things going on back then, and John just never wanted to hear it. That was the act, but but Boris and Bart are way, way better than I am at that sort of thing.
That was actually really good.
That's where it stemmed, honest to God, that's where it stemmed from. Probably, I would say 5th grade. I was a handful in school, an absolute handful, like you would not imagine. And actually, it was 4th grade. In 4th grade, I had a teacher that knew I wanted to put on a show. I wanted to put on a show, and I was disruptive all day trying to do that, trying to get people to laugh, trying to get people to notice me. You know what I mean? And she came up to me the one day and she said, listen, if you're good all day in class, I'll give you 15 minutes at the end of the day and you can put on a show. From that moment on, that was my best year of school. I got great marks and everything. Yeah, it was the most fantastic year of schooling I've ever had. And that's where this started, about 4th grade.
Wow. So this has a lot of years behind it.
Yeah, a whole lot, yeah.
So is it impressions across the board that you can do, or is it more voices?
Oh, wow. It's really everything. I'm a musician. I've played for the Stanley Cup playoffs, actually. I've played parody songs for the Pittsburgh Penguins down at the arena the past couple of years. I love Weird Al Yankovic. I'm a big fan of everything nerdy. I just absolutely love it. I feed off of it. It's the most enjoyable stuff to me. I
can relate.
Yeah, it's just I do a lot of different voices, I'd say, yeah.
Because there's something about like people who can do impressions that it honestly just blows my mind that like somebody who say has my voice can just morph into like Christopher Walken, like that kind of stuff. It's just like, how are you doing that? I will literally sit in a chair and I'll go, right, I'm going to try and be Christopher Walken, and literally I go to Pulp Fiction and the only thing I can do is this watch. That's all I can just talk about, the watch. Those 2 words. I can't do anything else.
Oh, that's funny. Well, it's and everything that I do, I'm a kind-hearted person. I love everybody. I don't have anything bad to say about anybody, truthfully. My brother-in-law, he's from Mexico, and he's truthfully one of my favorite people in the world. But I do my best Mexican impression to him, and he does his best Pittsburgher impression to me. And let me tell you, over the years, he has become spectacular at talking Pittsburghese. It is something to see. But if you work hard enough at doing a voice, eventually you'll get somewhat in the ballpark of that voice.
And I assume that is the case with what Boris and Bart is, because I looked all the way back to when you when that whole thing started, and you can see the evolution of that voice, and now you just seem to have nailed it. You've hammered in on exactly what that voice is now. So I don't think. Well, are you going to add any changes to it? Or are you like perfectly happy with how they talk and how the characters are?
Oh yeah. What's the word? I guess the transition period is definitely over. There were times where I was having them do separate videos. Bart would shoot one, and Boris couldn't shut his mouth long enough to let Bart finish, and he would yell in. And then it would be the same thing with Boris. He would be doing a skit, and Bart wouldn't be able to shut his mouth and keep his mouth quiet, so he would chime in. And then I realized, you know what, these 2 jerks, because that's really what they are. They're 2 different versions of jerks. Bart thinks he knows everything in the world. He thinks that everything that he says is how it should be, and it's nauseating. It is absolutely nauseating. Like, he thinks he can write the show better than Vince McMahon, and the guys have been writing it for, 40 years. And it's hard to handle sometimes, but Boris, he does not cut him any slack at all.
I mean, Bart grew on me as our episode went on. So. Oh,
good. Yeah, wow.
But I think
you're
it's
a kind man.
You got to take it with a pinch of salt.
I know. Well, Boris, though, he's the other end of the spectrum. I don't know if he knows. He's been watching wrestling for 36 years, and honest to God, I don't know if he knows anything about it, truthfully, except for how much he absolutely loves it. That's all that I think he knows is passion. Passion and blood and guts. That's Boris, and Bart's the other end. Yeah, and oh my God, I know. Nikolai Volkov never ends. But good for him, though. I love Nikolai too. I'm glad that these legends and heroes of wrestling can live on through this act that they do.
And hey, you got You got a thumbs up from Hillbilly Jim last week, I believe it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was last week. I've gotten really nice compliments from Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Sergeant Slaughter. A lot of guys have liked the show. It was, honestly, I don't know how they can tolerate looking at his face that long.
See, I think the thing is, like, if somebody from this generation of wrestling, like, retweets you or, you know, likes something that you do, like, for me, say Kurt Angle retweeted like a tweet I put out like last year or something like that, and I was like, oh my god, this is absolutely amazing. Kurt Angle has actually seen one of my tweets and interacted with it and put it out there for his followers. I was like, that's really cool. But I think there's something extra with the older generation, so your Sergeant Slaughters, your Hillbilly Jims, your Hacksaws, all them kind of guys. I think there's just an extra layer to it because, like, social media really isn't their bag. Like, they're coming into it at the back, at the back nine of their lives. So for them to actually get on there and see your stuff, like it, retweet. I'm not saying they're dinosaurs and they're not able to, you know, look at this kind of stuff. But I think there's an added effort for them to look at your stuff and interact with it. So I think with the likes of those guys interacting with your stuff, I think that's really cool.
Oh, it's absolutely an honor for them to watch this show. I've done stuff for WrestleCon last year. I did the longest set we've ever put together of Boris and Bart for a bunch of different legends, Mick Foley, a bunch of different ones. But those three, Sergeant Slaughter and Hacksaw and Hillbilly, were the ones who actually took the time to write a nice comment. But the one thing about these clips is Bart is super persistent about sending them, and he's not afraid. He's not afraid to send them directly to the people that he is talking about. And I actually have had contact with a few people in the WWE that I do know personally, and these videos have been seen in the WWE. They have absolutely been seen.
That is cool.
I don't know if truly if people are afraid to look at, like, whenever you see that, it's pretty jarring to see those two idiots right in front of your face like that. It's really, you know, some people might think that they're on there swearing and you know, and belittling people. I'll tell you what, if there is any insults that are thrown, I guarantee you that the other one has the opposing view. You know, its show is not meant to be insulting in any way. It's really G-rated. It's for kids. They could laugh at these two fools as well. It's really just for fun. It's for fun, and it is a satire to show just how silly wrestling fans can truly be sometimes when they ruin the fun actually for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing I have noticed about it is that, and I know you've made comments on it before as well, is that some people just take it way too seriously, like your act, and they genuinely think that it's a real thing, which is bizarre because it's.
I know.
It is what it is.
I know. I've actually gotten, like, not death threats, you know, not that, but like I have had people go off. And other people who follow Boris and Bart have said, hey, you do see this is an act, right? For anybody who could possibly look at these two and be insulted would absolutely blow my mind. Because truthfully, just their face alone is as insulting as anything could be.
It's just... this is the thing. You do anything creative and put it online, no matter what it doesn't have to be wrestling-based, you're going to get criticized for it no matter what it is. And that's just the world we live in right now, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Boris and Bart, these two lunatics, they actually they want that. Like, whenever, you know, that image of their face so close to that camera and the way they both act, it's begging for interaction and begging for you know, a response, good or bad, either one. It doesn't matter to me, and I'm sure it wouldn't matter to these two jerks either.
So, with the super short report, what is the ceiling for these two guys? Like, where do you want it to go?
Well, that's a great question. Truthfully, honest to God, these two, they are without a doubt the most unique act in wrestling, period. I know that they're not technically involved in wrestling, but I mean just about wrestling, whatever, just an act in general. There is no more unique act than these two, and that's 24 hours a day.
Dedication. I like it.
Yeah, it's dedication's a good word. Insanity is what it feels like a lot of the time being with these two.
I can only imagine. More Bart than Boris, but hey, they both play off each other and rile each other up, so...
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And the cool thing is, I think recently anyway, WWE, are branching out, and they'll actually acknowledge stuff that goes on that gets traction. So, I don't know if you know him. You know Josiah Williams, WrestleFlow? He did, raps over, wrestlers' theme songs. That just started off as, a YouTube thing that he was doing. And now he works for WWE because they took notice of it. And
that sounds pretty good.
So there's nothing to say that these people that have seen your stuff backstage in WWE, you never know, is all I'm saying.
Well, I got to say this, it's been more than one.
So
more than one star has seen the act.
So all you need is a bit of word of mouth from these people.
Yeah, but other people that have, and other people that, it would be hard to put, trust me, coming from me, it would be hard to put your neck on the line for Boris and Bart. It would be tough. It would be tough to go to your boss and say, hey, check out these guys. You know what I mean?
Especially if it's Vince.
I know. Could you imagine that?
Saying that, Vince would probably like them, to be fair.
That's true.
That is true. It seems... It doesn't seem quite right to be talking about Boris and Bart without them making a little bit of an appearance. I actually missed them a little bit. The show just hasn't been the same. So are they available?
Oh my gosh! I'll tell you what, that would be fantastic. Give me a 5-minute break. That'd be great for you to talk to these two. That'd be fantastic. That means they're both staring at me right now. They're waiting. They know that I'm on the show. Bart is pacing around, and Boris is just staring at him. Yeah. If you don't mind, it's totally up to you, though. If you want them in here, they'll come out.
It would be nice for them to come on in a capacity where they're not hacking in. It's an open invitation
I'm
to them.
sorry. I know. He's on the computer 24 hours a day. I don't even know what I don't know. And then it's just bad. All right. Hey, guys. What's up? Come here. You want to be on the show for a few minutes? You got to be normal. You have to be normal. That I am always better than normal. That's not nice to say. All right, just please, will you just do it? Yeah, Boris, come on. I want to be on the show. Can we just promise to be normal just one day and leave out the Nikolai Volkov stuff? I will never promise to leave out the... All right, just stop it. Stop it. You guys ready? Hey, Dits, it's Bart. How's it going?
Hey, Bart, not too bad. Yourself?
I'm awesome. I can't believe that you wanted us to come on. He did not want you. Do not be mistake. He wanted me. How are you doing? I am back. Boris is here.
Welcome back, Boris. It's good to have you.
It's a very good day. Very good mind.
It's against my better judgment, mind you, but that's more like it always was the last time you guys were on here. It's more aimed at Bart than it is Boris. But you won me over, Bart, to be fair, so I will give you that.
Well, that's fantastic. That means the world to me. Nobody says that to me, ever, honest to God.
Maybe I'm just overly nice.
Yes, you are. I can't stand his face. He makes me crazy. He is a jerk.
So, guys, what do you have for me today?
We do have a super short report if you'd be willing to listen to it.
Hey, I am more than willing. Go for it, guys.
All right, Boris, you ready? I am as ready as I can be. That's good. Go ahead, you jerk. All right, it's Boris and Bart with a super short report. That's right, guys. This week, oh my gosh, so many things have happened. Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins are actually getting married. How sweet is that, Boris? That is very good. I am very happy for them. That is very nice. The only thing I do not like is now we have to put up with them for the rest of our lives. No, that's the thing, Boris. I don't think that we do. I think the WWE, I think that they know that those two together... You mean Beth Rollins, the worst star in the world. Yes, everyone knows Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, according to you, are Beth Rollins, but that's not what we're talking about. I think it's great, and I don't think that they need to be annoying on television, you know? There's no reason to see them playing hide-and-go-seek and hopscotch on Monday Night Raw. There's no reason for it.
That is true. That is better. Did you see how white her legs are?
All right, stop it. You promised. Stop it. But, yeah, other crazy things have happened as well. How about Jon Moxley, Boris, being out of All Out? He's all out of All Out. It's horrible.
Who do you mean? I do not know this John Mox. Who is that?
Boris, oh, my gosh. I've explained to you 5,000 times. Do you remember Dean Ambrose?
Yes, I remember him. He is very good.
All right. Dean Ambrose, his new character is Jon Moxley, Boris.
I do not know what you mean. I do not like that at all.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, do you remember when the Iron Sheik, do you remember when he changed his name for a little bit for some odd reason to Colonel Mustafa?
I do remember that. That was very bad. I hated that.
All right, well, that is what happened with Jon Moxley and Dean Ambrose. Here, look at this picture. See it?
I do. That is Dean Ambrose. That is a very greasy-looking, sparkly Dean Ambrose.
No. Yes, Boris, it used to be, but now it's Jon Moxley, okay?
All right, what is his problem? Why can he not wrestle in the All Out? What is his deal?
Well, Boris, it's actually super serious. He has MRSA.
MRSA, that is the disease with the poop.
No, it's not. It has nothing to do with poop. I swear to you, absolutely nothing to do with poop.
That isn't it, does. I have heard of this before. It is poop disease. It is a very disgusting poop disease.
No, oh my gosh, it has nothing to do with poop. Dits, I'm so sorry. It has nothing to do with poop, Boris. It's a bacterial infection, and it's actually in his elbow.
All right, I want Skittles so bad.
What? Boris, what are you talking about?
I love these Skittles, and I don't know why I cannot get enough of them. The red, they are very great.
Boris, we're not here to talk about Skittles. We're here to talk about wrestling.
We are here to talk about the Skittles. Every time I think of the wrestling, I think of Skittles all day, and I do not know why.
Oh, my gosh. Anyways, this is Boris and Bart.
With a super short report. Have a good day.
I appreciate you having us on again. It's really nice of you.
It's a very love-hate relationship. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Mine is the hate. I hate and hate him more every second of the day. But I love the Skittles. I can.
Boris, please stop. All right, do you want to talk to Nick? Because I know that he's not going to stop talking about Skittles.
I love the Skittles, the red ones and the green. I mix them together.
All right, please stop it.
Maybe you need to go get him a bag of Skittles.
That's a great idea. Boris, here, let's go get some Skittles. All right, here's Nick. I appreciate it. I hope you have us on again.
All right, shut your mouth. Let's get the Skittles, the green and the red.
Oh, my God. Get out. All right, enough. I knew it. I knew he was going to. He had 2 bags of Skittles in his pocket right now. 2. 1 in each pocket. I can see him as they're walking up the steps. They're falling out of his pocket. He pushed Bart down. All right, they're gone. Yeah, so that was a nice break. Did you enjoy him for 5 minutes? I'm glad I could get away from him for that amount of time. That was nice.
I use the term enjoyment very loosely.
Yeah, I know.
I can relate to the love of Skittles, though. I do like Skittles.
Yeah, I love him too. But he honestly, he has not figured out why he's obsessed with them all of a sudden. It's so funny. We all watch Raw together, and and SmackDown, and he can't figure out what the deal is. It's unbelievable.
I can't quite work it out. It's not like it's there in the background and it's entering your subconscious.
It is. The New Day's bathing in them. It's funny. It is funny. It's the whole show. But hey, I mean, that's what they pay for, so whatever. Good for them. Bad for Boris and Bart, but good for them.
I might actually reach out to Skittles and see if they'll sponsor this show.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll give it a go.
That'd be great.
If it results in a lifetime supply of Skittles, I am more than happy to put in the effort and the graft to get them on board.
Absolutely. Boris would be thrilled. I don't know what you would do.
So
that would be great.
A good segue into the bit that I actually really wanted to get you on for and talk about is the fact that you've started with Boris and Bart a super short retro toy report. It covers all of your wrestling memorabilia that you have. Of course, that is the background for Boris and Bart and has been, for a few months now. And every time I look at it, sometimes I'm not even listening to Boris and Bart, which I'm sure is a natural reaction anyway. But I'm just kind of scanning what is there in the background. I'm just like, that's really interesting to have all that kind of stuff. So with that collection, like how long have you been amassing all this stuff?
36 years.
Wow.
I was Hulk Hogan for Halloween whenever I was 13 months old.
What? Jesus.
I have photos. I have, from when I was a kid. I didn't have baby toys. I had LJN figures. I had Captain Lou Albano. I had Jesse the Body Ventura and Hulk Hogan. You know what I mean? I did not have baby toys.
I really like that. I mean, because I've got my own kids and I've thrown wrestling toys at them at a very early age. So I'm with you there. I can relate to that massively.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is that I have 3 children. None of my kids are into wrestling at all, except for my 2 children right now who are fighting in the yard over a bag of Skittles, Boris and Bart. Actually, Bart's not fighting. He's just in a ball, and Boris is just kicking him in the butt. I don't even know what they're doing. I can't even look at them right now.
Probably well deserved.
It is, I'm sure.
So what I was thinking was, I mean, we could literally talk for hours, I'm sure, about everything that you have in your collection. But you have a life, you have kids, and you also have to make sure that Boris and Bart don't kill each other. Otherwise, you're ruining a potential cash cow for yourselves. So let's go for top 5 of the stuff that you have, which actually might be a little bit difficult. I don't know if you'll struggle with that.
Not. Nope, it's not.
So if you're willing to go through your top 5, then go for it.
Sure, absolutely. All right. See, the thing with my collection is if you look at the set, you see the set. I'm always putting new stuff out just so everyone's not looking at the same stuff all the time, because the reason I put the reason that is the background of Boris and Bart is so you don't have to look at them. It is so you really, truly don't have to see their face. You have something else to look at. And that's how this started. I had a lot of people contacting me saying, hey, we want to see the toys. We want to hear about the toys. So here it is. The super short retro toy report is what you got. There's no other show on planet Earth, obviously, like it. It has, the knowledge of a collectible show and the fun and ridiculousness of these two. But yeah, not one item in my entire collection has ever come from eBay. Never. I've never purchased anything from eBay. Everything I've had since I've been 1 year old, or I found at flea markets or yard sales or retro toy shops. Not one item have I ever purchased from eBay. And I'm not against eBay buyers. I mean, that's fine. If you want to complete your collections on eBay, that's fine. I don't want to complete my collection. I hope that my collections are never complete, because that means that I'll be hunting for them for absolutely ever. And it's going to get harder and harder. But that makes it more fun to me.
So how have you managed to keep hold of stuff for 36 years? Because I struggle to keep up with stuff that I bought 2 weeks ago. Like, that's really impressive.
I know. I honestly don't know. I've loved it so much. I just have made sure that it was always safe. I do actually have the display of LJN figures that I show every once in a while. That is my showcase. I have my childhood figures actually at the Boris and Bart set. If you could see, there's some bins below, and that is where I actually have all of my guys. I just did a suit. We had one where they did the smells, how you get the smells out of the LJN figures.
Yeah.
That Big John Stud, he truly is 36 years in my collection. And he did have a really, really bad BO problem that after a long, long time, I finally have figured out extract that horrible stench out of those figures.
And what was that stench? Like once you
it was, oh my gosh, it was probably my fingers and boogers and everything for the past, because they just absorb everything. And there was a time where I would go downstairs and I could smell this smell. And I'm like, what is that smell? And I'd walk over to my shelf and I sniffed it out that it was Big John Studd, and he absolutely reeked. I don't know. It could have been from playing in the bathtub. Who knows? Honestly, who knows what it's from? But I couldn't get rid of it. I couldn't get rid of it with anything. Bleach, absolutely nothing would get rid of the smell. Rubbing alcohol, nothing. And then I finally, I boiled him for about a minute, and I think it was actually a little bit too long for him. But the water turned into, it looked like it looked like an outhouse. It looked like a bathroom you would see in like a football stadium. It was revolting. It turned like a brownish yellow, but when I pulled out Big John Studd, he smelled like I just opened him.
From 36 years worth of, I'm not going to say abuse, but I'm going to say abusive smells.
Yeah.
Get that out of him, that's something that people can, that they can take on as well if they're watching your stuff. So it's not all about fun. You can get something out of it as well. You can take something away from it. So hopefully,
absolutely,
if people have that same
Bart,
problem,
I gotta say, Bart, he knows his stuff as far as collecting. He does. He absolutely does. I got to give it to him. I do not compliment him for anything. He's absolutely obnoxious. But, and I would never let him hear me say this. But there aren't many people that know more about wrestling toys and collectibles than he does.
It's good that you have him on board.
Yeah, good and bad.
So, I always look at stuff and I always go, I'd love to start collecting and all that kind of stuff, because when you get into it, it's really enjoyable to do. Because I used to collect, back in the day, I used to collect Pokemon cards. I don't know if that's still a thing, if people still collect Pokemon cards, but that's what I used to do when I was a kid. I always used to love it. But I think now as an adult, if I started collecting stuff and then I started to notice how much this collection is starting to be worth, I would be tempted just to go, I'll cash in.
Right. Yeah. Well, they're very personal to my collection. Is very personal to me. I've had a lot of great finds. I've had a lot of disasters where things have fallen through. I've driven 3 hours to go to meet someone and look at these, wrestling toys, and it's ended up being a bunch of dollar store toys. It wasn't the same photos I was being shown, that they were, it's just, there's a lot of times where, that's why eBay is actually nice, because they back you up. Whenever you're picking and hunting on your own, nobody's backing you up. But it was only a few weeks ago I actually got a few of the higher end 1989 LJN figures for $3 a piece, and it's a massive. The worth of the guys that I have probably is around $800, and I paid $9 for them at just in a big. But the thing was, I saw the box. I knew it was filled with LJN figures, and I made the person an offer based on what the top of the box looked like. And it wasn't until I dug down into the box to find Ravishing Rick Rude, Warlord, and the Haku figures. But there's sometimes you strike gold, other times you strike out,
So how much do you think your entire collection is worth? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, wow. That's a great question. My two rows of LJN figures alone, I would say, are probably about 2,500.
Jesus.
My Hasbro figures, and honestly, it's not about money for me, because these are being buried with me. I'm never giving these I don't. They are worth zero. Honestly, these figures are worth nothing because they are locked up in my collection and they are never leaving. I don't do this for money. I mean, that's not the point. I love it for just loving it. Like, you asked my top 5 my top 5 collectibles, and they're the weirdest collectibles in the world. My number 1 favorite collectible, and I actually had these two do a super short, I can't even say it. I don't know how those two say it with their problems. the super short retro toy report that they do, the mini fly swatter. That it came in mega, I think it was mega matches with the Macho Man Randy Savage on the front cover. This little tiny mini Coliseum home video miniature fly swatter came with this cassette tape, this VHS tape, and it's one of my favorite things in my collection just because it's so weird. And how many people kept a miniature fly swatter?
I mean, that is
Like,
a very random collectible.
Very random, yeah. Another one that you can see that's one of my absolute definite top fives. On the top of the super short report in the back, you can see a miniature Jake the Snake Roberts plush pillow. I don't know why Titan Sports would have ever made a miniature Jake the Snake Roberts plush silk pillow. It doesn't really make much sense, but it's really awesome. And I don't think there are very many of them floating around, and I think that that's neat. Those are the kind of things that I gravitate towards. Those are the kind of things that I think are really interesting, So those are definitely my top two for sure. My LJN, any LJN figure I have is in my top five because that's where it all started for me. Whenever I was growing up, like for my birthday, Christmas, I'd want either wrestling figures or cash because I knew every $4 I collected, I could get myself a new LJN figure. And that's what I wanted. So that, like, I remember there's a lot of pictures of me and my mom and my brother when we're really, really small, and I always had Captain Lou Albano. So Captain Lou is absolutely one of my top five favorite collectibles as well, the LJN figure. Let's see. I have a miniature LJN bendy figure, Hulk Hogan with the blue knee pads. And for some reason, he's worth more than the red knee pad Hulk Hogan. And I don't understand why he would be worth more, but he is. And I found him the first time I ever took my son out to the junk store, as we call them, and we were digging around in the junk boxes, the 50-cent junk boxes. You get 2 items for $1, and my son helped me find blue knee pad Hulk Hogan, and there it was. 50 cents later, he's now a centerpiece of my LJN bendable collection. And I'll always remember that I was with him, and you know what I mean? Like, that's what means something to me. Another one is another Jake Roberts one, actually. Jake Roberts came with a Damien Snake. He came out with one, I should say. It came with a bag. It says Jake the Snake on it. Came with a box. You could see that at the top of the super short report as well. That was one of my favorite toys of all time. It came with a green sack, just like Jake carried to the ring. And I'll never forget, whenever I was a kid, my mom pulled that sack inside out and made it into a money bag for my brother because he was a gangster for Halloween. So inside of my Jake the Snake Roberts bag is a money sign that my mom drew for me. That's cool. Like, that's what means something to me,
Yeah, I mean, this is what, just by listening to you there, I love how passionate you are about all this stuff, and I like the fact that it is you're doing it for the right reason. I'm nothing against people that collect stuff, to sell it.
Sure,
on.
no, right.
But I love the fact that yours is just completely personal, and
yes,
it's very endearing. I do love that, and that is one of the main reasons I did want you to come on and talk about it, because just through the Boris and Bart stuff, with the retro toy reports, and even before that, just seeing the stuff in the background, you can see how much of a passion project this is, and it is nice to see that somebody is willing to go with, go for something personal over just going, I can see money in this.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everyone knows there's a big, huge WWE backed or whatever podcast now about wrestling toys. And it's cool. It's really cool to watch. I mean, it's great stuff. But it is so oriented on price and how much stuff's worth and how much you're able to spend. To me, that a show like that, the only thing that their objective is to increase the value of what they already have. My purpose of my collection, it is not for resale. Like, that's not the purpose. I just want to project with these two intolerable fools. I want to project the fun and the joy of wrestling, both on the wrestling show and in the wrestling collectibles. But my absolute, probably the one that means the most to me is years ago, I think it was 2014, they ran a radio contest in Pittsburgh and the only part I heard of the prize was they said, win a lunch with Bret the Hitman Hart. And I thought, you got to be kidding that's a prize for a show. You got to be kidding me. So I sat in my truck and I waited until that commercial ran again 20 minutes later. And what they wanted you to do was you had to call into this radio show and do a wrestling promo live on the air about a sports-related topic, and you could win a one-on-one lunch with Bret the Hitman Hart, my absolute favorite wrestler of all time. So I won. I mean, I got on the show, and I was the second guy. It was a week-long tournament. And after I did my promo, the host of the show, the morning show for 93.7 The Fan, said, honestly, and I feel bad that he even said this because there was people waiting on the line to go, and then the next 4 days people had to go. He said, honestly, everybody else might as well hang up because that guy just won. And it was a week-long tournament. And my promo outlasted everybody, and I did win. And it was amazing, and he was the greatest, most gracious man. He talked about everything. Anything I asked him about Owen, I asked him about Vince, I asked him about Shawn, and he was phenomenal. He asked me if I brought anything to sign, and I didn't want to seem like an absolute, nerd, but I had a huge, as you could see, I had a huge box of collectibles in my car to sign. So I brought them in, and I only handed him a few, and he said, well, what's in the rest of the box? So I showed him, and he signed every single item in the box, and I wasn't even going to ask him to sign everything, but wow. He was just so human and nice. It was really, I'll never forget it my entire life. It was really fantastic.
I mean, that is so fucking cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
I see the thing with Bret Hart is like sometimes I do see that side of him where he can, like you said, he can be human around people.
Yeah.
Then you also have like the other side of him where you kind of go, maybe he's a little bit closed off. But it's really good that during that lunch, I mean, obviously he wouldn't have signed up to it if he was just going to sit there and just do nothing.
Right.
But, the fact that he was so open to you, massive kudos to him.
Absolutely. Well, I asked him, I said, Bret, what do you do now? Like, what do you do for fun? And he said, honestly, I sit on my back porch in Hawaii with my wife, and I drink wine, and I shoot at little lizards through the fence with a airsoft gun, and it's so much fun. And it was just to hear him say that, because that's something that I would do. Like, and I'm like, that's really... that's something. And this was something. The waitress brought him a pizza, a barbecued chicken pizza, and the pizza actually had onions on it. And Bret said, I'm so sorry, but I asked for no onions. And the girl said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'll take it back for you. Bret said, no, it's all right, sweetheart. I'll just pick them off myself. It's okay. He picked off his onions on his own incorrectly made pizza. It was really something to see. He was really a phenomenal guy to get the honor of to win the honor of having a lunch with him was really awesome.
What was the promo?
Well, the promo was in a NFL, National Football League promo. I was pretending to be a Pittsburgh Steelers linebackers manager. And I got to admit, I plagiarized a little bit. And I was in the ring, and I was calling out the commissioner of the NFL. I was calling him out from backstage. So I said, let me see here. It was, let me tell you something there, Mr. Roger Goodell. James Harrison, he is the hit maker. He is the record breaker. He's got style and grace, and he's got one pretty face. And let me tell you something else, Mr. Roger Goodell. When you're in the back there and you're laughing and joking, you got the big man, the gorilla here, James Harrison, and he be cooking and smoking. And they loved it. They loved it. They absolutely loved it.
I can see why.
And, yeah, I won. And Bret had me stand up in the restaurant and do that promo in the
Yes.
restaurant. It was awesome. It was really awesome.
That's such an insane thing. The fact that you can say that you've had a lunch with Bret Hart, like, what an experience.
Yeah, I know. Well, honestly, whenever I'm a very obsessive person, whenever I have my sights set on a goal, I will not be happy until that goal is accomplished. I just won't.
And, well, it's a good trait to have, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, yeah, to be good and bad. I'm up till 2:30 in the morning with these two jerks every night. Imagine that.
I mean, I'm people who have been guests on here will know that I record like very, very late. I do all my recording, in the middle of the night when everybody's in bed, because then I don't feel bad for, slinking away and sitting up in my man cave doing all this kind of stuff. So I can relate to that. Like, I want this thing to be the best that it can be, and I'm willing
Absolutely.
to stay up until stupid o'clock in the morning to make sure it is. So I can definitely relate to that.
And that's why it is the quality that it is. You know what I mean? That's why your show is the quality that it is. So that works, I mean, hey, I know we both don't sleep, but what can you do? You'll sleep. We'll sleep some other time, I suppose.
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Yeah, right. That's the saying. That's right.
So with your collectibles, I know you said like this is something you're gonna do, like as long as you have breath in your body, this is what you're gonna do. But if, say, one of your kids like got really into wrestling as much as you and as much as Boris and Bart, would you be? I know you said you would bury yourself with these collectibles, but would you trust them in handing down your prized possessions and give them to them?
Oh yeah, they're meant to be played with. I mean, I hope I come home and every single figure that I have is taken out of the closet, and I hope every single I hope they're playing with everything. That's what I want. I want them to enjoy them. Yeah, I mean, that's what they are. They're toys. They're meant to be played with. Absolutely, without a doubt.
Well, I guess that's also the cool thing of this being so personal to you, and you're not looking at selling these things on. Like, nothing has to stay in its box.
Nope.
So yeah, I mean there's a plus to it. Straight away, your kids can enjoy something that you enjoyed as a kid.
Right.
And,
I mean,
and maybe
to me,
that when they have kids, then that can just keep going on and on and on and on, and that's something that's pretty cool.
That means more than selling a mint on the card figure. I don't understand. I have one. The reason I have one of each, I have one of each figure. Just one figure of an LJN, one figure of a Hasbro, just one of each in the package. That's all I need to remember the packages. I do have the card backs, but they're open. Like, I don't understand the point of a toy that's locked up. I don't get it. It doesn't do anything for me besides, gain value and then sell it. But to me, that's not what collecting is. That's not fun to me at all.
I'd say I don't know why, but for some reason the 40-year-old virgin just popped into my head when he doesn't want it loses its value when it gets out the box. It's just...
Yeah, it gains value. It gains value, and it comes to life whenever it comes out of that box. Ask Boris. I swear to God, I find him talking to Nikolai Volkov a lot of times through the glass. I'm serious. It's craziness. But that's when they come to life, when you rip that package open and you play with it. That's, to me, what a toy is supposed to be. I feel like I'm on Toy Story. This feels like Toy Story. No, that's what toys are for. They're not to collect dust and to make your wife mad and to collect to just take up space. That's, I don't get the point of that. But hey, whatever people want to do, that's totally up to them. I mean, if they enjoy that for their reasons, that's their thing. They probably think I'm a maniac, which
I guess the added value really is for you is that you get to enjoy them, your kids will get to enjoy them. It's a passion project for you. So that's where the extra value comes for you personally. So it doesn't really matter what other people think as long as you're seeing that extra value in your own stuff. So fuck them.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Now,
exactly.
As we wrap things up, I do have one last question.
Sure.
Out of every collectible that you're aware of, wrestling-wise, in the world that you have not got in your collection, which is the one that you want to go for? What is your holy grail of wrestling memorabilia that you need to have in your collection?
I'll tell you what, that is an awesome question. I absolutely know the answer, and I'm going to post a picture of it to you on Twitter.
Oh.
It's the one item I had whenever I was about 4 or 5 years old that just did not stand up to the test of time. And that was the Junkyard Dog stretch figure. And that is the figure that I want more than anything in the world. And I will send you a photo of me with that figure. It's the only thing that did not make it into my collection now. And it haunts me to this day. Every day I'll think about the JY. I think about that JYD. Maybe they grab them cakes, you know how the JYD do. And I think about that all the time, and it drives me absolutely crazy. Crazy.
So how did you miss out on getting that?
Oh, no, I had it whenever I was a kid. It dried up. It dried up, yeah. It dried up, and my mom threw it away. It was disgusting. I guess I don't know, from pulling it so much, it just gave out. But it's like a stretchable figure, and you can pull it one end to the other. And I'll send you a photo. It's right now, you can buy it on eBay. If I wanted it, I could have had it today on eBay. It's $354.
Oof.
But I want to find it in a yard sale covered in poop. You know what I mean? I want to find it. That's the only way I'll ever own that figure again, is if, I find it in the wild, because that's the only way it would be worth it to me and fun for me to reclaim that figure in that way. That would be the only way I would do it.
I can only imagine, like, the reaction if you were just stumbling across a yard sale, or you were in one of these junk shops and you saw that figure. I can only imagine your face seeing that.
Yep. And not only that, I mean, hey, I'm going on Friday for my birthday. I'm going all day to the biggest flea market in the area. Who knows? You never know. I might come back with the JYD, brother. You know that you got the JYD right here. And I'll tell you this, brother. You know that I grab them cakes. That's right. They cannot. Harley Race comes after me. I'm the real king of the WWF. I'll tell you that, brother. I am the JYD. That's right, brother.
Yeah, I can see why your teacher gave you that 15-minute slot when you were at school.
I know. Well, imagine this. They're doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and all of a sudden you got,
He wasn't coming out to help Hogan Monsoon. He was coming out after Adonis.
like that happens, and you're standing up for morning service or whatever, and that happens. Yeah, it didn't work out well.
Oh, that is brilliant! Absolutely brilliant. I've actually got something for you here as well. That
oh wow!
I've tried to master it, but
okay, great.
I'll get your verdict on it. So here we go. It's Boris and Bart with a super short report. How was that?
Oh, that's wonderful. That is wonderful. Wow, that's great. Oh, my. I love it. That is perfect.
The thing is, I actually walk around my house and I just talk like those two guys. And sometimes they're just like looking at me like, what are you doing? I was like, you won't understand. You won't understand.
Oh, that's fantastic. That made my night right there, man. I made my night. That's what it's all about. Fun. It's just fun.
Yeah, exactly.
You know
exactly.
what I mean? How could it not be fun to answer the phone sometime as Boris? I mean, oh my God. It's something.
Well, I think that's quite a good way to end the
absolutely
end things there. I need to work on it though. I'm gonna add little bits to it, and maybe if you're ever struck down with illness and you need a stand-in, then
hey, honestly, I'm taking applications all the time to replace these two. All the time. Now Boris wants his mother to appear. It's just crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
But
Boris's mother has a better beard than Bart. Honest to God.
Oh wow.
Yep. Yeah, it's so bad. Oh, it's so bad.
It's all about those Eastern European facial hair on the women.
Yeah. Yep, it is.
Buddy, today has been... I mean, I know I'm up late doing this, but it's chats like this that make it absolutely worth it. This has been a lot of fun, and I know people listening to this are going to think the exact same, even if they're not into wrestling memorabilia or collectibles or anything that kind of stuff. You're going to get something out of this. It's been really, really fun. So thank you very, very much for coming on and taking the time to chat.
Oh, absolutely, my pleasure. I had a great time. I hope I can come back.
Absolutely.
If I can keep these two not from if I can keep Boris from not killing Bart, I'll be glad to come back again.
So just take this opportunity to plug your social media accounts or YouTube channels or any of that kind of stuff before you head off.
Oh, absolutely. Just give Bart a follow. That's where you can find everything Super Short Report related. It is Super Smart Mark on Twitter. Boris has a Twitter account, but he has specifically asked for people to not follow him. So I think I'm just going to erase it. I don't even know why he has it, but my Twitter handle is Berg Bartley, BURGH BARTLEY. That's me, and the brains behind Boris and Bart.
And listeners, troops, I really hope you do go and follow Nick and follow Boris and Bart as well, grudgingly, of course.
Always.
You will have a good time. I promise you that much. But no, thank you very much for coming on, Nick, and I will definitely look at getting you on again because it has been a lot of fun.
Hey, great. I appreciate it very much. I hope to come back. Thank you very much.
Now, that chat was a lot of fun. Hearing about his lunch with Bret Hart, I mean, that alone is worth a listen. But I had a lot of fun with that one. It might just be my favorite. It could be. And this is what I like about the guests I've had on so far. All of them, I always kind of go, right, I'm going to want to talk, 25, 30 minutes, because that's, an acceptable amount of time to do like an interview or a guest spot. But each guest I've had so far has been really interesting and really fun to talk to. So it's ended up going way past there. Last week with Dude, we ended up talking more than the 25 minutes I originally intended. And today we've gone way over with the chat with Nick, but I'm not going to complain. It was a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it as much as we did, myself and Nick throwing that together for you. So, I really hope he comes back on in the very near future. Maybe we will plan, something a bit more regular, shall we say. But stay tuned for that. But it's time for that Q&A section of the show, and this week there's a lot of questions. A lot. Usually it's about 1 to 3, maybe. This week there's quite a few. So we're going to get straight into it because you'll be here for a month of Sundays otherwise. Because I want to read them all. That's what I try and read every question that comes to me, because then everyone gets their chance to appear on the show in some way, shape or form, even if it's just a shout out. So Wrestling with John's podcast, he was a voice clip last week. He's back with a question this week. Buy or sell NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff or AEW All Out? Just purely because I'm going to NXT UK this weekend. That will be my buy, and All Out will be my sell. But I will watch All Out on Sunday. I really, really am intrigued to check that out, because this is, although Double or Nothing was AEW's coming out party, I think All Out is a little bit more important to them, as it's their go home, if you will, before their TV stuff starts. Unless there's another show that AEW have thrown together before then, I'm not really sure. Come back at me if there is. But I'm sure it's the go home before that happens. So I think there is a lot of importance behind this, and there is a lot of hype to live up to. I would buy TakeOver Cardiff just purely because I'm going. Ringside Rant has 2 questions this week, the cheeky bastard, as well as a voice clip. So he's taken over the show this week. Why is everyone freaking out over CM Punk still? CM Punk was... I mean, I was a huge fan of CM Punk when he was around. All the way from, ECW straight through. And then I went back and looked at his Ring of Honor stuff, and I enjoyed that as well. It's one of those things where I think a lot of people really, really backed CM Punk and maybe wanted a little bit more from him. Or from what WWE gave him anyway. I mean, the way I look at it, I mean, he had that incredibly long run as WWE champion, so what the hell is everybody complaining about? But at the same time, I can see where people are coming from. Maybe he deserved a little bit more rather than just meaningless feuds. To look back, I'm not really sure. I think it is now just it's a trend. That's all it is. It's just a trend now. People chant CM Punk, at the shows, which is ridiculous. I don't think there's that big of a thing, to be honest, with CM Punk. I just think it's habit. I purely think it's habit. I mean, like I said, I like CM Punk, whatever he ends up doing, he can crack on, fair play to him, good luck, whatever. But I don't clamor for a return to WWE. I don't clamor for his return to wrestling. If he shows up at All Out this weekend, that'd be pretty cool. But at the same time, whatever. He had a really good career in WWE, and I remember it as a really good career. That's the way I look at it. Brainbuster Radio, which feeds into CM Punk as well, actually. Better return, Eva Marie or CM Punk? Now, honestly, and I know it's a jokey question, and this is where Wilf, the man behind Brainbuster, is saying, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's not a joke question. It's very serious. I actually do genuinely think that the better return would be Eva Marie, and I'm not even joking. CM Punk's had his time. Eva Marie moved up to SmackDown Live, and I actually really enjoyed what she was doing. She had the narrator coming up with excuses aplenty as to why she couldn't wrestle that week, and I thought it was a really fun gimmick. Sadly, then the whole drug thing happened. I don't know the backstory into all of that, and it derailed that momentum. I thought she was really getting somewhere, and when you look past her in-ring ability, which was questionable at best, she was only going to get better if she stuck to it. She showed that dedication. She was always training. I think she trained with Brian Kendrick for a little bit as well. It's a shame that she went, because I do think that she would have had a place in SmackDown Live back then and the women's division now. I think it's the women's division is the worst place without her. And I can say that with a straight face. I enjoyed the act. Like I said, in-ring ability, it wasn't the best, but you can only improve. So, Eva Marie, by far the better return. CM Punk had his time. Eva Marie didn't get a chance to have her time. So there you go. View from the top rope. This is a great question. This not a wrestling question. I did say it doesn't have to be wrestling based. You are offered free travel for the rest of your life. You can literally go anywhere, but at all times you must bring with you a talking gnome who is the most obnoxious creature on the planet, and I'm talking pull out your hair obnoxious. Would you take it? Honestly, I would. I would take it, because you get to see some pretty cool places. Obviously, you got a little dickhead with you, which is a shame. But I have a talking gnome with me. There's money in that, people. I can get money from this idiot talking, no matter how much of a prick he is. I can get this guy to make me money, I know it's free travel around the world, but that's free spends. That's free alcohol. That's free food. That's free attractions. Give me that. This guy can be the biggest twat on the planet. And I think that's the first time I've said twat on this podcast, and now the second. he can be that guy if he's making me money, and I will make it that he is making me money, no matter how obnoxious the little guy is. So I would take it, and it'd be fun. I can deal with obnoxious people. I deal with them on a weekly basis with my job. So I think I could do it, and I'm going to take it literally as well. Pulling my hair out, I'm not far off being bald, so not an issue. Not an issue. Ringside Rant, back again with another question. Would you rather be given sweet chin music? Yeah, I love how you actually put sweet hair music. I know that is obviously a typo, but I would actually be interested to see a sweet hair music. I mean, does he whip you with his hair? Does he tune up the band and then swipe you in the face with his luscious locks? That'd be a different finisher. That would take away the Ric Flair retirement match at WrestleMania. It'd have a little bit of a different feel. Instead of kicking Rick in the face, he just swipes his hair at him. Interesting. Or not. Would you rather take a sweet chin music from HBK or a tombstone from The Undertaker? Ooh. Either way, my head is going to hurt. But I think because the tombstone, you land on the top of your head rather than a kick to the face, which could land anywhere. It could hit you in the chin, as the move name would, suggest. Or you could get kicked in the nose. I've got a big nose, so if I get kicked in the nose, that thing's breaking. How I've not broken it in the first 20 years of existence, I will never know. But it could hit me in the nose. It could break. It could hit me in the eye socket. It could hit me square in the forehead. It could hit me anywhere in the face, which is going to mess me up. It can hit me in the back of the head. It can hit me anywhere in the fucking head. Or anywhere in the body. It doesn't really matter. Or it just wouldn't be sweet chin music in that case. But the tombstone is just the top of your head, and your neck might hurt a little bit. But I'll take it. Give me a tombstone over a sweet chin music any day of the week. Anthony and Alex. Great podcast, by the way, for these guys. Go check that out. AA Talk stuff. Pick which scenario you'd rather be in. Jump off the top of Hell in a Cell through a table, or be powerbombed through a flaming table covered in thumbtacks. Jesus Christ. Okay, that is a tough one. I have a thing with heights. So when I think Hell in a Cell and flying off it, I immediately think Mick Foley, Mankind, King of the Ring. That's what I go with. But then you've also got the Shane ones that he has done through a table. Equally as devastating. When I see that, when I see Shane perched on top of the cell, looking down, it fills me with dread. And I always think, would I be able to be Shane, stood at top of that cage, looking down, with such a small target? I'd imagine it's a small target when you're up there, so it would worry me. I don't think I'd be able to push my body off. But at the same time, I don't want to be set on fire either. So, thumbtacks I can deal with. I've stepped on plug sockets before, so I'm happy with that one. I'm going to go with powerbomb through a flaming table, because when you usually watch stuff, as soon as you go through the table, the fire kind of goes out. It's probably because your body has absorbed it all, but the fire goes out. I just can't pick. I think I could not trust myself to jump off a cage and land accurately where I need to land. If I was in Shane's position, I would probably go like 10 feet past the table and land on some poor sod in the crowd. I would not be able to trust myself doing it. So yeah, set me on fire. Set me on fire. Jimmy Evans asked, who do you have winning King of the Ring? Well, as I alluded to earlier in the show, I said Drew McIntyre was going all the way. Now he's not, because he's eliminated. So my new pick is God. I'm going to actually go with Ricochet. He's my new pick. I'm going Ricochet. I think he is riding a wave of momentum right now. And if he's already bested Drew, he's best Samoa Joe in the past as well. Although he didn't beat Corbin when they faced off in singles action a couple of months ago. So, spanner in the works. But then this could be his moment. He finally beats Baron Corbin, goes into the final, and defeats Andrade to become King of the Ring. There you go. That's exactly what's going to happen. Ricochet, King of the Ring, 2019. Boom. And finally, MGB Mason asked, we've started middle school yesterday. What was the best prank you saw /did/heard in year 6 through year 8? I don't think I'm going to be able to answer that question. And if people, I don't know if you listen to the show, but for those of you that do, you know how forgetful I am. And when I try and think back to my time in school, I can see a lot of laughter because I had a really fun group of friends and we always took the piss out of each other and, nothing was off limits with us. However, what comes before those visions of laughter, I have no idea. I don't have a Scoobies. But I will share a little funny story involving myself. I guess you could call it a prank, kind of. I don't know. UK fans will of the show, you'll understand this, especially the guys. When you was at school, sometimes we didn't have a ball, and I'm talking a proper sized football. So we used a tennis ball on grass, no less. We used to play with a fucking tennis ball on the grass. To play football. It was mental, but it was always fun. It was always a good laugh, and it was different. And obviously, a tennis ball is yellow. So, yeah. And one day it was a lunch break, and we were playing with a tennis ball, playing football, and we came to the end of it, and there had been hockey played on the grounds that we were playing on just before we went on lunch. So there obviously is a chance that some equipment is left out. And in this case, some equipment was left out. And that equipment, in this case, was a yellow hockey ball. So you have a yellow hockey ball in play and a yellow tennis ball in play. Now, my friends thought it'd be a great idea. Well, they were throwing the tennis ball up. Sorry, I was throwing my pen everywhere. They were throwing this tennis ball up in the air and just heading it, just because. And I was just sat there, just watching it and just talking to whoever I was. And they went, "Oi, head this, mate." And I was like, "All right, okay, I'll come over. I'll take part." So I come bolting in, and the ball goes flying up in the air. And I'm ready for it. I'm like, "Here we go." Assuming this thing is a tennis ball that's about to hit my head. No. A fucking hockey ball hits me square in the head. And I think it knocked me out because I don't remember being in pain from it. I think it was literally just collision, floor. And Jesus Christ, it hurt. And when I finally realized what was going on, my mate Ryan was just like, "I didn't actually think that you were going to do that. I thought you knew it was a hockey ball." And I was like, "I didn't know. I thought it was a tennis ball." So I got knocked out at school because I thought a hockey ball was a tennis ball. And I decided to headbutt the thing after it had been in the air for about 5 seconds. It was some height. I will tell you that much. It was some height. But we had a lot of pranks at school. School was a lot of fun. I just don't remember. If I do remember one, and I will think about this between now and next week's show, come the next Q&A, I'll bring this question up again and I'll share it with you because I'm sure there's a lot of stuff. I just don't remember it, annoyingly. But there you go. Tybo Ledson has asked, well, actually, he's got two questions here. You cheeky bastard. Everyone's being cheeky. Do you think Strowman and Rollins doing double duty is a clever take on what would be a standard feud or just lazy booking? I don't personally think that this feud needed the tag team titles thrown in there. Like, I don't think it needed to feed into what's going to happen at Clash of Champions. Obviously, like you said, they are performing double duty. It would have been fine as its own thing, but maybe they're protecting Seth a little bit because this match they're going to be weakened up a little bit, and then maybe something will happen to Braun. Maybe he'll get injured in that tag match. They'll lose the tag match. It will come to the main event or wherever they end up placing in the show, and Seth will finally be able to. I say finally be able to overcome. I don't know if he's had a match with Braun before, but he'll be able to best him because Braun isn't 100%. So I guess when you put it that way, it actually works. I don't really see it as lazy booking if that's the case. But I guess it depends on what happens at Clash of Champions, whether I see it's a clever take or not. Because if it goes the way I just said, then yes, it's a clever take. If not, lazy. So it's dependent. It's dependent. Who is your favorite random pairing tag team? I think I mentioned this earlier. I can't remember. You know what my memory's like, people. My favorite random pairing. I mean, straight away my mind goes straight to the Rock and Mankind, Rock and Sock Connection. Very, very entertaining team, very good team together. But I think more recent, and I'm going to say the Bar. Cesaro and Sheamus, two guys who are very, very talented. Sheamus is very, very underrated, and Cesaro has just kind of existed in WWE, and to no fault of his own, really. He's a fantastic talent. They were thrown together in that Best of 7,000 series that they did, which seemed to go on forever. But every match was pretty good. They were besting it every single time, and then, come the end of it, they drew the whole thing. I went, you know what? You're a tag team now. So yeah, that was a random pairing, but they ended up sticking together for 2 years, and they had 5 runs as tag team champions, I believe. They were unreal. They are one of my favorite teams of all time, the Bar. So I would actually go ahead and say that they are my favorite random pairing. And I think a few people will agree with that. Some might not, but hey, it's my opinion. Last question. No. No, Aussie Lucian, Ben, you have snuck 2 questions in as well. This is a massive Q&A. I usually do. This usually takes like 4 minutes, and I think I'm eating into 20 at the moment. But there you go. It's my show. It can go as long as it wants. What should Ziggler and Rude's tandem be named? I'm stealing this one off somebody else. Rudolph. As soon as I saw that, it made me laugh. I would have probably come to that eventually, but I'm stealing that. Rudolph is great. The glorious show-offs I've seen as well, but it's not good. Rudolph. Please call them Rudolph. They're not going to be called Rudolph, but please call them Rudolph. It means come Christmas time, if they're still a tag team, they'll be in some themed Christmas match, I'm sure, under the guise of Rudolph. But there you go. Was Ali over Buddy the right decision? In brackets, there's only one correct answer. Although I'm happy with Ali beating Buddy, it's not actually, no. I rephrase that. I'm okay with Ali winning and advancing to the next round. But beating Buddy is not the right decision. Buddy is riding a bigger wave of momentum than Ali is. Granted, Ali is entitled to an Intercontinental title match. He hasn't had that match yet against Shinsuke, and now he's been pushed aside for this thing they've got going on with Miz and Sammy and all that stuff. So he deserves something because he didn't get that. So maybe that's why he went over. I don't know. But Buddy is the guy who is popping absolutely everybody. Like, the crowd now know who Buddy Murphy is. If somebody goes, who's that guy? Everybody will go, that is Buddy Murphy. And they'll be able to tell him how incredible he was in the ring for the last 3 weeks. and even the more hardcore fans, they'll know how good he was in 205, and they'll know how good he was back in NXT when he was part of a tag team. So I'm with you. Buddy Murphy should have won this, but he shouldn't have gone out in the first round. Unfortunately, he has. It isn't gonna harm him, I don't think, because he is riding such a high wave of momentum. It's just what he does next. I don't know. But no, it wasn't the right decision, but I am happy with Ali advancing, just not at the expense of Mr. Murphy. But there you go. That is the end of this mahoosive Q&A. Oh, Jesus Christ. I don't know who has stuck through the whole thing, but if you have, then congratulations, you deserve some kind of medal. But that is all we have time for today. Otherwise, we're gonna go into hour 3. I could literally talk on this thing for hours and hours and hours, but I'm not going to do that. Let's call it quits and let's go home. That was a really fun episode. I really enjoyed that. It's fun to have Nick on again. Not fully Boris and Bart, but he is a good dude, and his collection of wrestling memorabilia is impressive, and he had some good stories. But no, another good episode in the bag. Let's see if we can top last week. Only time will tell. But as always, you can follow me on social medias, on Twitter and Instagram at Dits on Wrestling. You can find me Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio now, all that good stuff. And that's where you'll find this podcast. You're listening to it now, so you've probably already found one of those places. Again, thank you so much for listening. Power Rankings returns next week. Dits versus Josh, my other podcast that I have with the amazing Josh Robinson of the Wrestling Reverb podcast. That returns this week as well on Saturday, so keep an eye out for that. But apart from that, thanks for tuning in, troops. I will see you next week.